In this episode of the July Life Coach podcast, let's talk in depth about a lot of the big questions that we can have about life. So, let's start with the fairly big one. Is there free will? So, it seems like everything in life is fairly predestined. Why do we say this? Well, everything seems to have a cause and effect relationship. Therefore, everything that I am experiencing in the current moment is influenced by the past. It is sort of, while it's not 100% predetermined, it seems that all the things that can happen today right now are the outcomes of previous experiences and happenings. So, when something in the past happens and there is no possibility for the present to appear in that particular version of the past, then the current me also wouldn't exist. Right? So these are the topics that are very popular in, science fiction and the multiverse, series and things like that. There is a lot of truth to all of this, right? So first of all, everything is cause and effect. Buddhism also says that, right? And there seems to be no really free will. And also, that is sort of true. Let's think about this. No matter what you do, you're not gonna live forever. You will die. And this sounds grim, but it is the reality. Everything changes. And there are certain things that seem to last a long time, but it never is the same. So, just by the virtue of impermanence, we can see that what we can do in this lifetime is confined to the possibilities that we have in the present moment. Therefore, if we had true free will, wouldn't we be able to exercise upon that free will and bend the rules of reality? We should be able to do whatever we want, but our free will tends to limit us. And while that is true, in the big course of things, as we can see from just discussing these simple facts, it seems like it seems that free will is limited. But in the time that is allowed to us, in the possibilities that are allowed to us, there is a lot of freedom. And that also does not take a rocket science to prove. You could have a hamburger for lunch or you could have a salad. You can freely make that distinction. But it's all predicated upon the fact that hamburger as a food exists, right? Salad as a food exists. For example, I cannot have a lunch item called smorgrove brødgrød because it doesn't exist. I just made up that word on the spot. What are the ingredients? I have no idea. Is it a hot food or is it a cold food? I don't know. Is it a dessert or is it a savory food? I have no fucking clue. Because why? I just made it up. So, just like this, we have to understand that many of the ideas that we popularly know, they seem to contradict each other, but there is a reality in which they can coexist. Why is this? It's because there is no rule so absolute that it just is inherently true all the time. Everything depends on a contextual kind of a definition, right? My glasses seem round if you are looking at the video, but when compared to a perfect circle, it is not so round. My hair seems very black, but when next to the, Pantone color absolute pitch black, suddenly it's not so black anymore. Rule of thumb in life says there is no free will, but that is true in the context of how it is defined, right? My mom says you can't have potato chips for breakfast. That rule may be true in my household, but at the same time, outside of that definition, right? Outside of the confines of where and how that rule is defined, that rule loses its power. So, to recap, the most important thing, first and foremost, is that nothing is fixed in stone. Nothing is inherently anything. No formula is absolutely true under all circumstances. And because of this, rules, formulas, precepts, and all these restrictions that seem to be so idempotent, that seem so independently true, can coexist with other such things because it all depends on context. So for this piece of an episode, I want to give you as many practical examples as I can give you related to the things that I'm talking about. So, I have a certain amount of money in my bank account, right? I am rich and I am poor at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive. Why? Because compared to somebody with less money than me, I am rich. But compared to somebody with more money than me, I am poor, right? So, while these two things usually are defined antagonistically to another, it doesn't always have to be the case that both cannot be true. Okay, so when we think about the fact that we have no real free will that transcends the boundary of time, it's easy to feel depressed because it seems like there's no point in doing anything. But if there is truly no point in doing anything, if it is absolutely true that, everything is random and pointless, then there is no point in making these videos. There is no point in trying to live a good life because nothing will probably lead to anything. If life is purely up to random chance, all the probability graphs will be just an even line where everything can have the same chance of happening. And there's this book I'm reading by Stephen Hawking, A Brief History of Time. Scientists have been talking about how to define the start of time and, moreover, what happened before then. What is the start of time? And since time can always be, we can always ask what happened before then. What happened before the realm of time, before the advent of time? And the way that scientists have defined it is, if there is a beginning of time, it must mean that the beginning of time must respect the current laws of the universe that we can observe. Why? Because if there is a period of time where the currently observable rules of the universe do not apply, then we can't deduce anything. By looking at history, we can find that a person was alive in 1421. That means that person is likely, because of human biology, that person has to have been alive at 1421. Therefore, we can sort of estimate when that person would have been born, when that person would have died. So, when I'm looking at sand, that sand must have been a rock sometime in the past, right? Because that's how sands are formed. If that rule doesn't apply, we can't deduce anything. We can't reasonably reverse engineer anything. So therefore, if there is a beginning of time that doesn't follow any rules, the search for the true, beginning of time is kind of pointless, because there's no rules governing it. Who knows? Maybe it was just 1 millisecond before. Maybe it's a million milliseconds before. You can't reasonably estimate the beginning of the big pre-laws of the universe times. So therefore, it is not worth considering at all. What we are interested in is, what is the beginning of time since the rules of the universe that as we know it has happened. So, this is very important, right? This is not only scientifically important, but also Buddhist perspectively very important. Cause and effect is the most clear rule of life and everything that we observe. But many people think of it in a very constrained kind of a way. And I'm gonna give you two examples of such constrained ways. Number one, when it comes to looking at the rules of the cause and effect in a personal lens, the first thing is the first kind of the error, frequent error that we observe is we try to apply ethics to it. So we think good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. But there are plenty of examples in life where, and history, where you do a bad thing and then it's rewarded by a good thing. You do a good thing, but then it's, you have a bad fate, right? So this makes us skeptical. This makes us lose faith in the governing forces of the universe. So it makes us pessimistic. There's no point in doing anything good because nothing is determined by anything. So this again, it's the same trap as before, right? If everything is truly random, you're right. There is no point in doing anything because nothing will reasonably lead to anything in a predictable manner. But reality tells us when you look at the world, the people who generally tend to good things generally tend to have good results, and generally bad people tend to have generally bad results, right? Although there are statistical anomalies and exceptions, this is what usually tends to happen. So that means there has to be a governing force that makes the probability graph shift a certain way. Because otherwise, everything would be a flat graph, where everything has the same probability of happening. But we can clearly see that is not the case. Second kind of the frequent error when it comes to cause and effect is we don't understand the direction of the cause and effect. What do lottery winners have in common? What do all lottery winners have in common? They all have in common the fact that they bought the lottery ticket. But just because you bought the lottery ticket, it does not mean you are guaranteed a win. If you watch the not Bruce Willis, the Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man, I think. No, actually, it's Bruce Almighty. I got the movies mixed up. If you watch Bruce Almighty, there's a scene where he grants everyone's wishes, and then what does the world turn into? A hellhole. Why? Because everyone got their wishes. Wishes are grounded upon the fact that the world is a system that follows a certain rule. And one of those rules is that when you create the cause for something, whether the effect happens or not is not guaranteed. It's up to chance. When we ignore that rule and make every cause guaranteed to result, then there's no order in the universe. Why? Because what makes order in the universe is the fact that in the cause and effect relationship, the forward direction, it's not guaranteed. But the past direction is always guaranteed. I cannot have mangoes without mango trees. I cannot have strawberries without strawberry the plant. I cannot be born unless sperm and egg meet, right? But just because sperm and egg were there, it doesn't mean I'm guaranteed to be born. The most commonly believed model of the start of life is that at first there was water, and on the water there was no life, but there were some things. Like you had dirt in the water. You have like a bunch of elements, right? Among them was fat, and among them were some things that could be broken down into protein or amino acids, right? And then there was nitrogen and like typical stuff that's in water. And over time, they happened to coincide purely by chance, and then it formed the first membrane, which could have contained anything. And I'm sure there were a lot of membranes that really didn't contain anything. But somehow, over a large period of time, it coincidentally formed a membrane that had all the beginnings of what we now call a cell. Something that was able to replicate itself through the process of life. With this came DNAs. And with DNAs came mutations. Because why? Like DNA has there's a lot of nucleic acid bonds, right? So there can be a chance of a fuck up. But the DNA has a self-correcting mechanism, right? But sometimes it doesn't. So that's why you have all these, a variety of human conditions, right? Some people are born with 6 fingers. Some people are born with no fingers. Some people are born white. Some people are born black. But we're all the same human, right? Because of that kind of a variance that has sustained over a period of time. So we are able to be here as human beings because all the ingredients of life were available in very, 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 very old Earth. And because of our existence, we can trace it back, right? Because had we not been here, we cannot trace anything back. So the existence of birds, you reverse engineer the genetic tree, and then you find dinosaurs, right? And then through fossils, we can and looking at the content of the fossils, we can deduce something, 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 and then the half-life, and then we can keep going back, right? So the past allows so by looking at the present, we can deduce the past because that's a guaranteed relationship. Whereas what we do in the present has a chance at impacting the future, but it's just not guaranteed. But there's a difference in the guaranteedness of things. There's a difference in the probability of things, right? So the probability of me drinking water and then having to pee it later is pretty high, right? Well, you could almost say it's guaranteed. But then I don't know. What if I have a failing kidney, and or what if I have stones? I can't pee anymore, right? Then I might die, and I will die with that water system in me. So, although the probability may be very high for certain scenarios, it is not always guaranteed. Okay, so what does this have to do with anything? These are fairly theoretical things, right? So I spent the last 19 minutes explaining, number one, what is free will? Can we really do whatever we want? We can, but inside the limitations of what we know. And what is kind of allowed for us by reality. I understand that in the beginning of the video, I made like free will means we have to be able to fly, but it's less about that. It's more about our will, our freedom in choosing the path of our life, choosing the path of our actions and such, right? Okay, so we have free will, but only in the confines. Some might argue that's really not free will, but that's the working model that I'm going with. Because if there is true infinite freedom, then there's no point in talking about any of this because, again, with complete randomness, you cannot have a realistic kind of a way of tracking everything, right? Therefore, trying to deduce things would be a futile endeavor, right? Okay, so it's like there's a coin, and there's some billion amount of people in the world who flipped this coin. How would you know, right? It's flipped, but by exactly who? Give me the exact set. Trying to find that out is kind of meaningless because there's too many probabilities, right? So, not the best example I can provide, but basically, we need to place some constraints onto this world so that it becomes meaningfully traceable. Because again, without such system, arguing for reason is kind of meaningless. Okay, so with that, we have the cause and effect relationship. When you look at what is already here today as a result, we can guarantee that some things in the past have happened. But the things that we do in the present is not guaranteed to have a specific result. Although, if you want it to happen, there's no way but to do it. There's no way but to create the chance for it to happen. Otherwise, it just won't happen, right? I really want to win the lottery, but I don't buy the ticket. Why? I'm probably not gonna win. So by not buying the ticket because of that mindset, I'm guaranteeing myself that I'm not gonna buy the ticket, right? Well, I'm not gonna win the lottery. But if I want to win the lottery, it doesn't matter how I feel about the lottery ticket. I'm just one of many people who bought the lottery, right? So, practical example. I want a girlfriend. If I want a girlfriend, I have to go out and meet people, right? But I can think, but I kind of fucking suck. No one's gonna like me. Does it matter if I meet people in that way versus I'm the best guy in the world? And when I meet people that way, so of course the impressions can differ, right? First impressions and then the probability based on that can differ. But the fact is, I'm creating that chance, and therefore now I have a non-zero probability. That's the important part, right? But we get consumed by our ideas. We're so sure of ourselves that we keep denying ourselves the possibility in the first place. And that is what ends up governing our life. That is what actually constrains our lives. And then we blame the world for it. When it's us that didn't take that chance. When it's us that didn't create the possibility for it to happen in the first place. Why? Because we were so certain of ourselves that we created our own self-fulfilling prophecy, and that is how we create our own results. Now, with this, how do we create the life that we want without feeling bad? Because that seems to be what we usually want out of life, right? Why can't we do the things that we feel like we should be doing? Okay, if I want to make more money, then I need to get a job. I need to get a higher paying job. But I don't know if I'm gonna get the job, and if I get rejected and it's gonna feel really bad. Okay, but the thing is, doesn't matter what you feel, right? You're not creating that chance, therefore you're not gonna get the job. But before we dive into that, let's really talk about the why the human condition is so complex compared to inanimate objects. Now, in inanimate objects, the rules that they follow are simple and practically almost always guaranteed, right? So when I drop something, it's gonna fall to the ground. Why? Because of gravity. Gravity dictates that it does that. But there is a chance that, you know, a big stream of air is gonna surge from the downward and it won't, right? So in that case, which can happen because this is a world with air and wind can occur, or this is a star, so another star can collide into it. There is nuclear core, so the Earth may have a big quake. I don't know. Something can happen, right? Because these are all in the realm of probability. Therefore, while there's a chance that the thing that I drop cannot reach the ground, it almost certainly will, right? So why? Because the rules of inanimate objects are simple. When you drop something, it's an object, and objects are bound to gravitational forces. So with the naturally occurring things, there's no multiple nuances to it. A rock is a rock, and the tree is a tree. Water is water. When I boil it under a normal atmosphere, it's gonna boil at 100 degrees. Depending on how I change the pressure, depending on how I, change the temperature, it might boil, it might freeze, but whatever. It still follows the rules of what water tends to do, right? Okay. But the human condition is a little bit different because with humans, now this is where it mixes with the idea of the free will. I can be anything. I can be a husband to my wife. But at the same time, I could be a son to my mom. At the same time, I can be a coach to my clients. At the same time, I can be an employee to my boss. And I can be a business owner to my accountant, right? So just like that, with humans, there's a lot more contexts to consider when we are thinking about the possibilities that we have. So going back to I want a girlfriend kind of an example. When I engage the world in a way that makes me a loser that no one would want to date, I become that, right? Therefore, instead of a person and a person meeting, an additional context happens, right? A person who has very low self-esteem and a lot of self-hatred meets a person who is interested in romance with, people who aren't so full of self-hatred. Now, this skews the probability a lot, right? But it's the same person. If I am full of myself, full of self-confidence and full of self-assurance, then the probability shifts again, right? But we think that we have to be a completely different person to be like that. But the thing is, it's still the same you. Depending on how you view yourself and depending on how you choose to act, how you choose to behave, you can alter the chance and probability of the things that you want to see in your life. When we feel a lot of self-loathing, when we feel a lot of self-disappointment, when we don't like ourselves, we keep creating that reality by participating in the cause and effect chain of that particular version of you. So, you want to be a more confident person, but the version of the confident person that you want is a result that you want, right? Now, when you become this confident person, something must have happened in the past. There's no way around it. Something has to have happened in the past that led to you being confident. What is that? That is the reverse engineering process that we talked about this entire episode, right? For the last 30 minutes. What do I need to do in order to have a chance at being a confident person? Now, same for the job. I want to work at Google, said me like 7 years ago. What do I need to do? I need to apply for a job at Google, right? I need to get interviews at Google. then I have a chance. Am I guaranteed it? No. Can I increase my chances by prepping a lot? Yeah, I can, but it still, is it guaranteed? No, right? But when I want to work at Google, something has to happen. And I have a reasonable idea of what that might be, so I do that. Right? But we keep getting discouraged because it's not guaranteed. We keep getting discouraged because the probability is low. But that is only a problem if you look at your life in a kind of an atomic sense. When you view your life in kind of as a discrete model of I want this, and then after that, what? I don't know. I'll think about it after. What if I don't get it? I don't know. That discrete thing you view your life as, it depends greatly on this thing that you want to get. So many people come to me. I want a girlfriend or a boyfriend. What are you gonna do with them? I don't know. They're just occupied with the idea of having one that they forget that life happens after that. I want to make a lot of money. What are you gonna do after that? I don't know. Right? Life is not this discrete model. Life is a continuous model, right? Life keeps on happening. Therefore, today, the chances of you getting what you want may be slim. But the thing is, even if it's slim, if you want it, do you have to do it? Yes. Right? What's a difficult plant to grow? I don't have a green thumb, right? So suppose basil. I don't know. Basil is really hard to grow. But if I think I can't grow basil, then yeah, I can't. Why? Because I never planted in the first place, right? Okay, so but I want to be able to grow a basil because I like that herb. Cool. Okay, then regardless of what I think about my gardening skills, I have to plant it, right? And at first, because I don't know better, I planted. Yay! And then a few days later, it died. Okay, and I got it again, and then I died. And then again, I got it, and then it died. And then again, I got it, and then it died. Okay, so if I keep doing that, and I observe that every time I do it, it dies, then I can get discouraged from it, right? Oh, but I really wanted this, but it seems like it's not working. So, what does discouraging do to you? You want basil, right? Does discouragement help you get basil? No. Then why do we get discouraged? Discouragement is just a side effect of wanting something, right? Wanting something with attachment. But it doesn't help me get basil. So in the ideal model, I'm gonna, I must have been really attached to the ability of growing basil. But you know what? I want it, but, and I'm gonna try my best, but even if I don't get it, I'm gonna have still learned something. When I look at it like that, I can start doing things differently, right? Okay, so I have this basil, and it keeps dying. And what do other people who successfully grow it do? Oh, they water it. Okay, then you try watering it, and then it dies. You try watering it in different amounts. Nope, turns out I've been planting it in the shade. Okay, it needs sunshine. So I plant it in the sunshine, but it dies. Maybe it's too much sun. Maybe I put it in the middle, or maybe I put it in shade. And so what allows me to keep going and experimenting, a genuine curiosity and the want to grow basil. I can want to do something without feeling bad about it. I can want to do something without being stressed about it, right? That means if you want something out of your life, there's no reason for you to be stressed because of it. In fact, does stress help you? No, there's absolutely no utility for stress. Why? Because when you look at the cause and effect relationship, stress is not a factor. Does the lottery ticket care if you bought the lottery ticket with a lot of stress versus casually? No, as long as your number is picked, you just get it, right? When you go to Vegas, does the slot machine care if you're desperate or not? No, a slot machine just works on probability, right? So, the desired result you want in your life, you get it when you create the condition for it and when the chance works in your favor. Stress has nothing to do with it. If stress helped, I would encourage you to get stressed. But because life is a continuous experience, because life is like a stream, you're going to need to do something in the next attempt, and the next attempt, and the next iteration, and the next iteration, and then the next iteration, and then the next iteration. When you are stressed, you will not be able to do that because you would suffer too much. Therefore, it is important for you, whenever you have a goal, whenever you have a desired result that you want to see in your life, you must do the reverse engineering of that. What do I need to do in order to get this result? If I already am this person who has this, what did I do in the past? And regardless of how difficult or stressful it feels to do that today, you just have to do it. There's no other way around it. I'm so lazy, I don't want to eat. But a guy's gotta eat, right? It doesn't matter how lazy you feel. In order to survive, you have to eat. Yeah, I really hate school. But if I want to graduate, I have to go, right? There's no way for me to not graduate without having to go to school. But so much of the desires that we have in our lives, so much of the wants that we have in our lives is like wanting to have cake and eat it too. Right? It's like wanting my stock to go up, but being one but also at the same time wanting to use that money. If I want to spend that money, I have to sell the stock. But I don't want to because it might go up more, right? I want to buy a Lamborghini, but then I don't want to pay the car payment. So many of our desires are like that. I want the result without any of the precondition. Therefore, you are free to do that. You are free to want that. But I'm saying there is no practical value to have been gotten from such a desire. I want you to be smart. I want you to be self-driven. I want you to do the best things for your life. But wanting to have your cake and eat it too, I don't think that's a good way to spend your time. I think a better way to spend your time is to think of life as a continuous experience where even the failed attempts at you getting what you want to get is going to inform your next decision. Which means, because nothing is absolute, if you get it, if you get your desired result in few tries, it may actually be a bad thing. Why? Because you don't have a lot of experience. This is the kind of perspective you need in order to actually get the things that you want out of your life. But it's important to remember today's long talk is based on very theoretical things. Number one, free will. Without free will contained within a system, life is pointless. It's pointless to talk about these things. It's pointless to discuss any of this. And it goes both ways. If life is truly free and there is no correlation between anything, it's meaningless. And at the same time, if everything is already fixed and there's no degree of freedom, there's no point. It all just follows one formula. But both are true at the same time. With the possibilities that are available to us, we have the possibility to choose. We keep thinking we know all the possibilities, but we don't. So that's why we have to keep an open mind as to what's truly possible for me. Right? Number two, because this confined system with our degree of freedom in choosing our free will, because it is part of a bigger system, the rules and the law of cause and effect, or dependent arising in Buddhist terms, it has meaning. It is true. It is only true because we are living in a contained system. Without that, again, no point in discussing anything. Because there is rule of law and because there is dependent arising, we are guaranteed one thing. What we have today is the result of something that happened in the past. But when it moves forward, the things that we do have a chance at creating the desired result that we want. Or we may have a lot of side effects that we didn't expect. But the thing is, when it happens, we will get to know that it's happened because of something that I did in the past. So, as a Korean, it's important for me to give this one example. Right? Okay. Not every occupied country is free like Korea is. But when I look at the people in the occupied countries, I've had a chance to talk to quite a few people in occupied countries. When I was learning Korean history, it was taught to us very little. When we were very little, it was taught to us in a way that everyone suffered when we were occupied. And through fighting, blood and tears, we got the liberation and liberty that we wanted, and therefore now we can be happy in a free world. But I saw a lot of happy people who are living in occupied lands. And that made me think a lot. If these people can be happy under occupation, then what's the point of Koreans fighting for liberty? Couldn't we be happy as Japanese people? And there's some truth to that, right? Coming to recent political events, isn't it possible that Gazans can be like Palestinians can be happy displaced somewhere else? It's not impossible, right? That version of the world can certainly be true, right? Palestinians can be happy under Israel occupied Palestine, and they can also be happy with the free Palestine. Palestinians can be unhappy under free Palestine, and Palestinians can be unhappy under occupied Palestine, right? Everything is possible, but happiness is not guaranteed to be precluded. You can be happy under any circumstance. Then what's the point of being free? What's the point of being an independent country? Is it easier to be happy in a comfortable house with AC and nice beds versus when you're starving out in the streets? Yes, right? While happiness is available to everyone, the accessibility of happiness is definitely a factor, right? So, with that in mind, Koreans are free. This means someone in the past must have done something to allow this for to have allowed for this freedom to have happened. And when I look at my life, I don't usually want to let go of my things, right? When I consider something my thing and I think about giving it to somebody else or throwing it away, it kind of feels bad. Because why? It's this my thing, right? So when I put myself into the shoes of Imperial Japan, it feels bad thinking that Korea is going to be free. That means when Koreans wanted to be free, I would have punished them for wanting to be free. Why? Because I don't like the feeling of something of mine being taken away. And that means my Korean ancestors must have fought for liberty even at the expense of their life, right? Would that have guaranteed freedom? No. But if they didn't do anything, we wouldn't have the freedom that we have today. This is what really makes us appreciate our lives. Everything that we can do today is because everything in the world that happened prior to this moment let you. All of your lineage, all of your ancestors are found within your DNA. When you suffer, everyone suffers together. Why? Because they propelled you into this moment to be something. And they did a lot of things for me to be here. And if I truly think about all the things that could have gone wrong, if I think about all the possibilities, the littlest possibility that would have caused me to not exist, there's so many of them. There's almost infinite degrees of errors that could have happened in the past that prevented my existence. But I'm here today because all these things coincidentally happened so that I could be here. And that, again, multiple ways of looking at it, right? But I choose to accept it with gratitude. And with that, this is the episode, the long episode on the rules of dependent arising.